The bustling airport terminal was a symphony of chaos, boarding announcements, crying babies, and the hum of rolling luggage. Jonathan Hartwell, the 42-year-old CEO of Hartwell Industries, sat stiffly in a leather chair, his laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. His flight to New York had been delayed due to a storm, and he was determined to make every second count. Emails, reports, and contracts, his world never stopped, not even for the weather. The irony of it all was not lost on him. He had built his entire empire on the concept of efficiency, supply chains that ran seamlessly, employees who worked around the clock, clients who trusted him to deliver results. But no matter how much control he wielded in the boardroom, he couldn't negotiate with the forces of nature. He sighed, rubbing his temple. "Mom, look, that man's typing so fast he's gonna break his computer." Jonathan glanced up slightly annoyed. A young girl, no older than 8, stood a few feet away, her curly brown hair bouncing as she laughed. She wore a bright yellow raincoat and carried a stuffed rabbit under one arm. Behind her stood a woman in her mid-30s, her mother presumably, with the same warm brown eyes and apologetic smile. "Kaylie, don't be rude," the woman said, gently steering her daughter closer. "I'm so sorry. She's just curious." Jonathan forced a tight smile. "It's fine." He returned to his screen. But the girl, Kaylie, plopped into the seat next to him, her stuffed rabbit perched on her lap. "What are you working on?" she asked, tilting her head. "Is it a secret mission? Are you a spy?" Jonathan blinked, caught off guard. "No, I'm not a spy, I'm just working." "On a Saturday?" Kaylie scrunched her nose. "That's boring." Her mother, Eliza, chuckled softly. "Kaylie, leave the man alone, he's busy." Jonathan should have been relieved that the conversation was ending, but something about the girl's blunt honesty struck him. He found himself closing his laptop, surprising even himself. "What do you do for fun on a Saturday?" he asked, leaning slightly forward. Kaylie's eyes lit up. "We build blanket forts and watch movies, and Mom makes the best popcorn. Right, Mom?" Eliza smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. "That's right, though today we're stuck here. Flight's delayed." "Mine too," Jonathan said, glancing at the storm outside. "Looks like we're all in the same boat." Kaylie leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know what we should do? Have an adventure. This airport is huge. We could explore." Jonathan hesitated. An adventure? He hadn't done anything spontaneous in years. But before he could respond, Eliza stood. "Actually, that's not a bad idea. Sitting here won't make the storm pass any faster. Come on, Kaylie, Miss Jonathan," he said, standing. "And I suppose I could use a break." As they walked through the terminal, Jonathan found himself observing the world through a different lens. He hadn't always been this way, so rigid, so focused on work. There had been a time long ago when life had been simpler. He grew up in a small town, the son of a mechanic and a schoolteacher. His father worked long hours at the garage, always trying to make ends meet, and his mother did everything she could to keep their home warm and full of love. But life had been hard. Jonathan had watched his father crumble under the weight of financial burdens, struggling to keep their business afloat. He had learned early that security came from control, from working harder, from sacrificing leisure for success. He put himself through business school, built Hartwell Industries from the ground up, and never once looked back. But in doing so, he had lost something. That thought lingered in his mind as Kaylie dragged them to the observation deck to watch planes take off, then to the gift shop, where she insisted he try on a ridiculous hat. Eliza laughed as he reluctantly put on a bright pink sun visor. "I think it suits you," she teased. "I think I should fire my stylist," he quipped, earning a giggle from Kaylie. Later, they shared a giant pretzel in the food court. For the first time in years, Jonathan wasn't thinking about deals, deadlines, or profits. He was present. Eliza was easy to talk to, warm, witty, and effortlessly kind. He learned that she was a single mother, a freelance graphic designer who worked from home to be with Kaylie. They were flying to visit her sister in Chicago. In turn, he shared snippets of his life. His relentless work schedule, his empty penthouse, the loneliness he never admitted to anyone. By the time the storm cleared and flights resumed, Jonathan felt a strange pang of regret. At the gate, Kaylie hugged him tightly. "You're not so boring after all," she declared. Eliza smiled, reaching into her bag and handing him a napkin with her phone number scribbled on it. "If you ever want to build a blanket fort, you know where to find us." Jonathan watched them board their plane, the napkin clutched in his hand. For the first time in years, he felt something other than the weight of his responsibilities. He felt alive. Weeks later, Jonathan sat in his office, the napkin still on his desk. He had tried to return to his old routine, endless meetings, calls, and nights spent staring at spreadsheets, but something was missing. The memory of that day at the airport lingered, the laughter, the connection, the simplicity of it all. Finally, he picked up his phone and dialed the number. "Eliza? It's Jonathan," he said, hesitating. I was wondering if the offer for that blanket fort still stands." There was a pause, then her laughter filled the receiver, warm and genuine. "I was starting to think you'd never call. I guess I just needed a little push," he admitted. "Well," she said playfully, "Kaylie will be thrilled, but just so you know, we take our fort building very seriously." Jonathan chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "I think I can handle it." As he ended the call, a rare smile spread across his face. For the first time in a long time, he was choosing something not for success, not for control, but for himself. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a different kind of adventure. Jonathan stood outside Eliza's modest home, a charming 2-story house with a front porch wrapped in warm yellow light. He hesitated before knocking, gripping the bottle of wine he had picked up on the way. His heart pounded, a foreign feeling for a man used to boardroom negotiations and high-stakes decisions. But this wasn't business. This was personal. And that terrified him. The door swung open, and Kaylie's excited squeal broke through his nerves. "You came!" She lunged at him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Jonathan laughed, startled by her enthusiasm. "I did say I'd help build a fort, didn't I?" Eliza appeared behind her, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "Glad you made it," she said, stepping aside to let him in. Inside, the house smelled of something rich and savory. The living room was cozy, filled with personal touches, family photos, colorful throw pillows, and Kaylie's drawings pinned to the fridge. It felt lived in, the opposite of his pristine, empty penthouse. "Dinner's almost ready," Eliza said, leading him into the kitchen. "Hope you like lasagna." "I love it," Jonathan said, and to his surprise, he meant it. Dinner was lively, filled with laughter and stories. Kaylie talked a mile a minute about school, her favorite movies, and how she was the world's best fort architect. Jonathan found himself drawn into the easy rhythm of conversation, savoring not just the food, but the company. After dinner, the fort building began. Blankets, chairs, and fairy lights transformed the living room into a magical hideout. Jonathan, used to precise planning, found himself taking orders from an 8-year-old. "More pillows, Mr. Jonathan. This is a fortress, not a cabin." Eliza laughed, shaking her head. "You heard the boss." As they finally collapsed inside the fort, Kaylie nestled between them. Jonathan felt something shift inside him. He hadn't realized how much he had needed this. Connection, warmth, belonging. For the first time in years, he felt at home. As the evening drew to a close, Kaylie's eyelids grew heavy, but her excitement remained palpable. Nestled within the cozy confines of their newly constructed blanket fort, she looked up at Jonathan with a hopeful gaze. "Mr. Jonathan," she began, stifling a yawn, "will you come with us to the zoo this Saturday?" Jonathan's heart warmed at the invitation. "I'd love to, Kaylie." Satisfied, Kaylie's eyes fluttered shut, and within moments, she was peacefully asleep, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. With Kaylie sound asleep, Jonathan and Eliza carefully extricated themselves from the fort and moved to the kitchen. The remnants of their earlier dinner, lasagna, salad, and the bottle of wine Jonathan had brought, still adorned the table. They settled into their chairs, the ambiance shifting to a more intimate and reflective mood. "It's been a while since I've had such a lively dinner," Jonathan admitted, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. Eliza smiled, pouring them each another glass of wine. Kaylie has that effect. She brings life into every room she enters. Jonathan nodded, his expression thoughtful. She reminds me of myself at her age, curious, full of energy. But life. He paused, searching for the right words. Life has a way of steering us off course. Eliza's eyes softened with understanding. Tell me about it. I never imagined I'd be raising a child on my own, balancing work and motherhood. But here we are, making the best of it. Jonathan leaned in, intrigued. How do you manage it all? She chuckled softly. Some days I don't, but I've learned to prioritize. Kaylie comes first, always. Work is important, but nothing outweighs family. Her words struck a chord with Jonathan. He realized that in his relentless pursuit of success, he had neglected the very essence of life. Human connection. I admire that, he confessed. I've spent so much time building my company, chasing goals, that I've forgotten what it's like to truly live. Eliza reached across the table, her hand gently covering his. It's never too late to rediscover that. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their shared confessions hanging in the air. As the clock neared midnight, Jonathan prepared to leave. Eliza walked him to the door, their footsteps muffled by the soft carpet. Thank you for tonight, he said earnestly. I haven't felt this connected in a long time. Eliza smiled warmly. We're glad you came. And remember, the zoo on Saturday. He nodded, a genuine smile spreading across his face. I wouldn't miss it for the world. As he walked to his car, Jonathan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The evening had been more than just a diversion. It was a glimpse into a life filled with warmth, laughter, and genuine connection. And for the first time in years, he looked forward to what the next day would bring. Over the past few months, Jonathan had seamlessly woven himself into the lives of Eliza and Kaylie. They spent weekends exploring parks, visiting museums, and sharing countless dinners. Despite their growing closeness, Jonathan had never disclosed his position as the CEO of Hartwell Industries, preferring to keep their relationship separate from his corporate identity. However, an unforeseen crisis at work demanded his immediate attention overseas. The company's expansion into the Asian market faced significant challenges, necessitating Jonathan's presence in Japan for several weeks. One evening, as they sat in Eliza's cozy living room, Jonathan took a deep breath, preparing to reveal his impending departure. Eliza, there's something I need to tell you, he began, his voice tinged with apprehension. She looked up from her tea, concern etching her features. What is it, Jonathan? He hesitated before continuing. I haven't been entirely forthcoming about my work. I'm the CEO of Hartwell Industries, and a situation has arisen that requires me to be in Japan for a few weeks. Eliza's eyes widened in surprise, processing the revelation. I had no idea, she murmured. Why didn't you tell us? I wanted our time together to be genuine without the complications of my professional life, he admitted. But now I have to leave, and I'm worried about how to explain this to Kaylie. The following day, Jonathan and Eliza sat with Kaylie in the living room, her favorite storybook resting on her lap. Kaylie, sweetheart, Jonathan began gently, I need to talk to you about something important. She looked up, her innocent eyes curious. What is it, Mr. Jonathan? He exchanged a brief glance with Eliza before continuing. I have to go on a work trip to a place called Japan. I'll be gone for a little while. Kaylie's face fell, her grip tightening on the book. How long will you be gone? A few weeks, he replied softly, feeling a pang of guilt. Tears welled up in her eyes. But who will read me stories and build forts with me? Jonathan's heart ached at her words. I know it's hard, Kaylie, but we'll talk every day. We can have video calls, and I'll read you bedtime stories, even from far away. Eliza chimed in, her voice soothing, and we'll make a special calendar to count down the days until Jonathan comes back. How does that sound? Kaylie sniffled, considering the idea. Will you bring me a souvenir from Japan? Jonathan managed a smile, relieved to see a spark of her usual enthusiasm. Absolutely. I'll bring you something special. During his time in Japan, Jonathan made it a priority to maintain daily communication with Eliza and Kaylie. They established a routine of video calls, during which Jonathan would read bedtime stories to Kaylie, bridging the physical distance between them. Eliza provided unwavering support, ensuring Kaylie's days were filled with activities and maintaining a sense of normalcy. They marked off days on the calendar, each passing day bringing them closer to Jonathan's return. Despite the challenges, the experience strengthened their bond, reinforcing the depth of their connection and their commitment to one another. Upon his return, Jonathan was greeted with exuberant hugs and joyous laughter. He presented Kaylie with a beautifully crafted Japanese doll, her eyes lighting up with delight. The separation had been difficult, but it underscored the importance of honesty and communication in their relationships. Jonathan's relationship with Eliza and Kaylie had blossomed into a profound bond, filling his life with joy and purpose. However, as their connection deepened, the public began to take notice, leading to a mix of opinions and scrutiny. News of Jonathan, a prominent CEO, dating a single mother became a topic of discussion in various circles. Some lauded his genuine affection and commitment, seeing it as a heartwarming narrative of love transcending societal expectations. Others, however, questioned the dynamics of their relationship, citing concerns about differences in social status and potential implications for his corporate image. Eliza, while appreciative of Jonathan's love, found herself thrust into an unfamiliar spotlight. Accustomed to a private life, she now faced unsolicited attention and occasional judgment from those who viewed their relationship through a critical lens. Despite the external pressures, her primary focus remained on the well-being of her daughter and the authenticity of their family unit. One evening, after tucking Kaylie into bed, Jonathan and Eliza sat together, the weight of public opinion heavy in the air. Sensing her unease, Jonathan took her hands in his eyes reflecting sincerity and determination. "Eliza," he began softly, "I know that our relationship has attracted attention, and not all of it has been kind, but none of that matters to me. What matters is you and Kaylie. I love both of you deeply, and I want us to be a family." Tears welled up in Eliza's eyes as she absorbed his words. "Jonathan, this world you're a part of, it's so different from mine. I worry about how it will affect Kaylie, about how we'll navigate it together." He gently wiped away a tear from her cheek. "We'll face it together, hand in hand. I want you and Kaylie in my life forever. Whatever challenges come our way, we'll overcome them as a family." Emboldened by Jonathan's unwavering commitment, Eliza felt a renewed sense of confidence. They decided to address the public narrative proactively, sharing their story on their terms. Through heartfelt interviews and community engagements, they highlighted the authenticity of their love and the strength of their blended family. Over time, the public's fascination shifted from skepticism to admiration. Their story became an emblem of love's ability to bridge disparate worlds, demonstrating that genuine connections can thrive despite societal expectations. Gina Wesley, Jonathan's former girlfriend, had always accepted that his career took precedence over personal matters. Their relationship had ended amicably, primarily due to Jonathan's relentless dedication to Hartwell Industries. However, upon discovering his deepening affection for Eliza and Kaylie, Gina felt a surge of jealousy and regret. Determined to reclaim Jonathan, she devised a plan to disrupt his newfound happiness. One afternoon, Gina appeared unannounced at Jonathan's office, her presence exuding confidence. Feigning casualness, she suggested they catch up over dinner. "Jonathan, it's been too long. Let's have dinner tonight and reminisce about old times." Jonathan, taken aback, responded politely but firmly, "I appreciate the offer, Gina, but I have plans with Eliza and Kaylie. But Jonathan, you owe me, and I like to hear more about Eliza and her child." Jonathan glared. Gina's tone was malice. He again refused her offer. After several attempts, Gina's smile tightened, masking her irritation. "Another time, then." Unwilling to accept defeat, Gina sought out Eliza, finding her at a local cafe. She approached her with a veneer of friendliness, concealing her true intentions. "Eliza, isn't it? I'm Gina, Jonathan's close friend." Eliza looked up, surprised. "Yes, that's me. Nice to meet you." Gina sat down uninvited, her tone turning sharp. "I wanted to talk to you about Jonathan. You see, he and I have a long history. You're just a distraction for him, a break from his real world. I know what's best for his future, and it doesn't include you." Eliza's face paled, her confidence wavering. I didn't realize." Gina smirked, sensing victory. "It's best you step aside before anyone gets hurt. It would be in your best interest to distance you and your daughter from him. Our world is too overwhelmed for a single mother like you." Eliza was left speechless. Gina smiles and walked away feeling victorious. Eliza was left in shock. Her and Jonathan never really talked much about past relationships. She didn't know he had a girlfriend. Gina's words haunted Eliza, planting seeds of doubt about her relationship with Jonathan. She began to question her place in his life, fearing she was merely a temporary distraction. Noticing Eliza's growing distance, Jonathan confronted her gently. "Eliza, you've been quiet lately. Is something bothering you?" Eliza hesitated before confessing. "I met Gina. She said I'm just a distraction for you, that you belong with her." Jonathan's expression hardened. "Gina has no say in my life. I ended things with her because I realized what I truly wanted, a family, love, and a genuine connection. I found all of that with you and Kaylie." Eliza's eyes brimmed with tears. "But what if she's right? What if you realize this isn't the life you want?" Jonathan cupped her face tenderly. "Eliza, I love you and Kaylie more than anything. You are my real world now, and nothing will change that." They spent the night talking about their past and what the future could look like. Jonathan tells Eliza he is looking for something long-term with them, but he doesn't want to rush anything. Jonathan said his world is very demanding and he is learning how to balance work life and family, but it will take time. And there are a lot more people like Gina that will try to put a wedge between us. Empowered by Jonathan's unwavering commitment, Eliza regained her confidence. They decided to confront Gina together, making it clear that her attempts to sabotage their relationship were futile. Meeting Gina at a neutral location, Jonathan spoke firmly. "Gina, I appreciate our past, but my future is with Eliza and Kaylie. Please respect that and move on." Gina's facade crumbled, revealing her bitterness. "You'll regret this, Jonathan." He shook his head calmly. "No, Gina, I won't. I have everything I've ever wanted right here." Defeated, Gina left, and Jonathan and Eliza walked away hand in hand, their bond stronger than ever. Despite Gina's attempts to sow discord, Jonathan and Eliza's relationship emerged more resilient. They learned the importance of trust and open communication, fortifying their commitment to each other and to Kaylie. Together they faced challenges head-on, knowing that their love and unity could withstand any storm. Despite Jonathan and Eliza's united front, Gina Wesley refused to accept the end of her relationship with Jonathan. Her initial attempts to win him back having failed, she resorted to more insidious tactics to undermine their bond. Gina began by spreading rumors about Eliza's past, insinuating that she was only interested in Jonathan for his wealth and status. She approached mutual acquaintances, planting seeds of doubt about Eliza's intentions. These falsehoods eventually reached Eliza, causing her to question her worthiness and the foundation of their relationship. Taking her schemes further, Gina created fake social media profiles to befriend Eliza and gather personal information. She then used this knowledge to craft messages that appeared to be from concerned friends, warning Jonathan about Eliza's supposed ulterior motives. This digital manipulation aimed to erode the trust between Jonathan and Eliza. Gina orchestrated situations to accidentally run into Jonathan, often when he was alone. She would feign vulnerability, sharing fabricated stories of personal struggles, hoping to evoke his sympathy and reignite old feelings. Jonathan, however, remained steadfast, recognizing her ploys and maintaining his commitment to Eliza. Gina Wesley's persistent interference in Jonathan and Eliza's relationship had escalated beyond mere nuisances. Determined to protect his newfound family, Jonathan devised a plan to expose Gina's manipulations and eliminate her influence once and for all. Aware of Gina's tactics to orchestrate chance encounters, Jonathan anticipated her next move. He confided in Eliza about his intentions, ensuring transparency and reinforcing their trust. "Eliza," he began, "I have a plan to put an end to Gina's schemes. It might involve some deception, but it's necessary to protect us." Eliza, though apprehensive, nodded in agreement. "I trust you, Jonathan. Do what is needed." Late one evening, as Jonathan worked alone in his office, Gina seized the opportunity to confront him. Feigning vulnerability, she approached him with a fabricated tale of personal woes. "Jonathan," she began, her voice trembling, "I know I've made mistakes, but I'm going through a difficult time. Can we talk?" Jonathan, masking his true intentions, softened his demeanor. "Of course, Gina. Let's sit and talk." She delved into her concocted hardships, painting herself as a victim in need of his support. Jonathan listened attentively, occasionally offering sympathetic nods. After a while, he leaned in, his expression earnest. "Gina, we've had our differences, but I hate to see you suffer. Would you like to continue this conversation at my place over some drinks?" Gina's eyes lit up with anticipation. "I'd like that very much." Jonathan's penthouse exuded elegance, a testament to his success. As they settled into the plush living area, he poured them both a glass of wine. "To old times," he toasted, raising his glass. Gina smiled, clinking her glass with his. "I've missed this, Jonathan. Us." She began reminiscing about their past, highlighting moments of passion and adventure. Jonathan played along, allowing nostalgia to weave its web. "I've realized," Gina confessed, her tone earnest, "that letting you go was the biggest mistake of my life. We were perfect together." Jonathan feigned contemplation. "Perhaps we were, but things changed." Gina reached out, placing her hand over his. "They don't have to stay that way. We can have it all again." Sipping his wine, Jonathan leaned back, appearing to lower his guard. "You know, Gina, recent events have opened my eyes. The allegations against Eliza, the rumors, it made me rethink everything." Gina's heart raced, sensing victory. "I'm glad you see it now. I only did what I thought was best for you." He leaned in closer, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. "So, it was you behind those allegations?" Gina hesitated for a moment, but, emboldened by the intimacy of the setting, nodded. "Yes, Jonathan, I did it for us, to show you that she's not right for you." Jonathan's eyes hardened imperceptibly, but he maintained his facade. "I appreciate your honesty, Gina. It means a lot." Unbeknownst to Gina, discreet cameras had recorded their entire conversation. Jonathan had ensured that every word of her confession was captured, providing irrefutable evidence of her schemes. As Gina continued to bask in her perceived triumph, Jonathan excused himself momentarily, stepping into another room. He retrieved his phone and sent a pre-drafted message to his legal team, instructing them to prepare the necessary restraining orders and to initiate legal proceedings against Gina for harassment and defamation. Returning to the living room, Jonathan's demeanor shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by a steely resolve. "Gina," he began, his tone cold, "our conversation tonight has been enlightening." She frowned, sensing the change. "What do you mean?" Jonathan reached for a remote control and pressed a button. A screen descended from the ceiling, displaying the footage of their conversation, including her confession. Gina's face paled as realization dawned. "You set me up. I can't believe you did this to me. Is that woman more important to you than me? I waited for you for 2 years. I understood the company came first. How could you?" He nodded. "I had to protect my family from your malicious actions. Our relationship wasn't real, and you need to move on. Understand this, Gina. Eliza will one day be Mrs. Hartwell, and Kaylie will be my daughter. And I will do anything to protect them." With the evidence in hand, Jonathan proceeded to take legal action against Gina. She faced charges of harassment, defamation, and attempted coercion. The court issued a restraining order, barring her from any contact with Jonathan, Eliza, or Kaylie. Eliza, upon learning of the successful operation, felt a profound sense of relief. "I'm glad it's over," she said, embracing Jonathan. He held her close, whispering, "Nothing will come between us again." Their ordeal had tested their bond, but ultimately strengthened it. With Gina's influence eradicated, they looked forward to a future filled with love, trust, and the promise of new beginnings. Isolated and facing legal consequences, Gina was forced to confront the reality of her actions. Her refusal to accept the end of her relationship with Jonathan led her down a path of self-destruction. It became evident that she needed professional help to address her obsessive behavior and inability to move on. Gina's refusal to give up tested the strength of Jonathan and Eliza's relationship. However, through resilience, open communication, and legal intervention, they protected their bond and moved forward, leaving Gina to face the consequences of her actions and seek the help she desperately needed. Over the following months, Jonathan and Eliza dedicated themselves to nurturing their relationship and establishing a solid foundation for their blended family. They prioritized open communication, ensuring that both their individual needs and those of Kaylie were addressed. 8 months into their journey together, Jonathan proposed to Eliza, marking a new chapter in their lives. They envisioned an intimate wedding that reflected their deep connection and the importance of family. Their wedding was a small, heartfelt ceremony attended by close family and friends. The intimate setting allowed them to focus on the significance of their commitment, creating lasting memories without the complexities of a larger event. This approach not only honored their desire for simplicity, but also underscored the depth of their bond. As they embarked on married life, Jonathan and Eliza continued to prioritize their family's well-being. They remained committed to fostering a loving environment for Kaylie, ensuring that she felt secure and cherished. The end. Hope you enjoyed this heartwarming love story by Green Tea Tales. Help our channel grow by like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.